minutes late. I try and crack the whip and it never, All right. All right. Committee members, we're now on to item 7.6. This is on page 109 of your agendas, an update on freshwater policy review work program. And we have Naomi and Taylor.
Yep. Kia ora. Naomi Crawford, Tuku Whenua, Team Leader Water Policy, Waikato Regional Council. So I'll take the report as read, but I'll just highlight, I guess, the high points, obviously, of the report, and happy to take some questions at the end if anybody has. So again, to reiterate, this report focuses on an update on the freshwater policy review, which is the scope of that project is water quality and water quantity, full regional boundary of and updating the Waikato Regional Policy Statement and also updating the Waikato Regional Plan.
I think your battery might be. We swap over. There we go.
Hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. So in recent months, we've been working alongside our project steering group, Te Rupu Hotu, and we've met several times, obviously, in the last few months. We've also had our first meeting of the Wairaroko Governance Committee last Friday on the 4th of April, and there were 4 reports that were brought to that committee. So progress has been made in obviously developing our policy options following the council decision in June last year to refocus the project. So our kind of goalpost at the moment is a working draft policy documents in early 2026, and then the outer limit of obviously when we have to notify the those freshwater planning instruments is December 2027. So it's anticipated that we've obviously got a suite of engagement that we're planning to undertake this year, and we're working alongside obviously our partners, and of course acknowledging that Te Tori Whaimana is the primary direction for the Waikato and Waipa catchments. We're obviously working in a very state of flux, obviously, with central government direction at the moment, and that's acknowledged in the report as well, around obviously the recent announcements in March around the 2 acts that we're going to see later on this year and are likely to be enacted obviously into next year. Also, there'll be further obviously national direction, and sort of that will impact obviously the project overall. So probably leave it there. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Madam Co-Chair.
So thanks for the report. This is not a question on the report. It's probably just to raise what happened at the inaugural Waiora Committee last week. In the fact that Regional Council didn't have a quorum at that meeting, which to those of us present was not a good start to that process. It really did raise questions around the level of commitment by Regional Council to that committee and to the process that's been adopted. So really just wanting to bring it here just to reinforce the whakaaro from River Iwi at that hui. I know the co-chair, Bruce, was very frustrated by the situation, but, it has made us sort of question, well, where are Regional Council at with this? One of the pieces of advice that we asked Dave for was, how can, I guess, a resolution be constructed or the terms of reference be constructed so that we reduce the potential for the incoming council to step back from that committee or that co-governance, co-decision-making framework. So they're working on that. But really just wanted to raise it because I think it's important to raise it. And alongside that, really raise the induction process that Regional Council will be designing for your incoming members, and I guess suggesting that our teams play a role in framing up I'd say at least half a day in the front end, or contributing to the front end of that induction process, so that any incoming councillors are very clear on some of those foundational commitments, agreements and relationships that should inform the mahi that they're about to undertake. So just raising that. It's not a comment on the report. Thank you for the report, but I think important for me to raise here.
Yes, and thank you for raising that. I can only offer our deepest apologies for what occurred last Friday. It certainly, I hope that my assurance that it should not be treated as a indication of any lack of commitment to the process or to that committee, or lack of recognition by this council of the importance of our relationship with the River Iwi and our commitment under Te Ture Whaimana. So I apologize that WRC was not able to present a quorum of our membership at that committee last Friday. To address that in future, because life does happen for some members, and at times we have to apologize and say that we're not able to attend. We are going to be putting in front of our next council meeting a paper that will establish alternates for that committee, because there were some apologies that were given well in advance, and we could have, and we also did have councillors in attendance on the day, but because we did not have alternates in place, it meant that meeting did lapse due to lack of quorum. So we will address that at our next council meeting, but I give you my assurance as the chair of Waikato Regional Council that we remain fully committed to this process, fully committed to our JMAs that are in place, and that we will continue to work collectively. As has been mentioned already in this meeting, I think we've made tremendous progress as organizations that are working collectively on this mahi. So other than that, I don't know if Councillor Clarkson, as the chair of that committee, anything that you would like to add?
Well, I think it's largely been covered, but there are some other avenues that we're also exploring in relation to the continuity issue. We won't go into them in detail today, but we are exploring some possibilities in relation to how continuity can be maintained over that period when people's in election mode and before the next council is brought in. And there are also some aspects around, I guess, what you might call training and education about the significance of co-governance committees in general, not just that one, but all co-governance committees. So we recognise the issue on Friday, and I apologise once again for that. We will definitely be doing something about it. I give my personal commitment. My personal commitment is that I sincerely believe in co-governance, and I will be doing everything possible to make that committee work. And just to, again, to agree with the points that the chair has made in relation to how we can do something about alternates. That's a very simple matter. We can do that really quickly, actually. So yeah, so thanks for your comments, and they are definitely recognised. Cheers.
Councillor Mahuta.
Just a quick one. I'll leave you guys to resolve membership, but probably for the whole committee, when we are ahead of every other catchment for the work we've done alongside the Waikato River and for the learnings that we have gained. To retain that leadership proposition, iwi have put in first generation settlement people. I couldn't say we've got that on our council side of the table. That's people who intimately know the Act and all of the different freshwater things that have changed. We just picked councillors that wanted to go on it. And I just say that now because we might have to look at, and again, I regard the expertise on the iwi side of the table. They have been long players in the water. And I just say we've got to get people who are more serious about it. It's not a learning seat. People think co-governance, it's not about it being co-governance, it's about it changing freshwater policy. So if we want to hold that position of council, I think people need to meet a standard to be on that committee and be suitably fluent in freshwater policy or what's been happening, because we've defaulted down to doing nothing like the rest of the country, and that's what's frustrating me. We've always been leaders in this field. We've built out the last decade of my participation here in council has been based on that. For us now not to be able to show up for ourselves, it's disgusting, and I'll let the other councillors know. Kia ora.
Anything in particular that committee members might like to comment with regard to the paper that is before us?
I just want to tautoko Tipa's comments there. You know, you have expertise within council who would be capable of, I guess, performing the role and who have the knowledge and the history of the settlement and the policy change, you know, at your fingertips. One of the kōrero that was held at the Waikato committee meeting from some of the river iwi was, you know, we have mātauranga Māori, well, you have mātauranga Māori experts on your table. Where are the Māori ward councillors in terms of, you know, representing council in that Waikato committee? So I think that is a kōrero you need to have, but the makeup of and skills and expertise that you're looking for when you're appointing your representatives is just something that I think, I'm sure you take seriously, but just want to tautoko Tipa's kōrero there.
Again, just anything that committee members would like to raise in relation to the paper itself?
Second, just because it's quite self-explanatory where we're at the process.
Right. All right. I appreciate us. Well, we've got a mover and a seconder, but just before I put that, I appreciate the kōrero that we have had. I appreciate that that all committee members feel an ability to share those thoughts in this space, and that we can do that constructively and find a way forward as a not only a committee, but also as organizations that are committed to each other. So we've got a mover and a seconder to receive the report. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, thank you very much for that. All right, we've got now item 7.7. This is on page 113 of your agendas. Overview of aligned work programs in the Whangamarino catchment. And we have Mike Scarsbrook.
Kia ora koutou, Madam Co-Chairs, and kia ora koutou to the rest of the committee. Thank you for the invitation to come along today and give an update on the Whangamarino Action Plan project. We presented on it briefly at the December meeting of the committee. So this is a brief update, and I'll take the paper as read. I just wanted to highlight, I guess, progress with this project. So a number of people around the table here and more widely deeply involved in this piece of work, and I really appreciate all the support and the level of engagement we're getting from everybody on this work. Just to start with a summary, there is I guess not surprising, but really pleasing general consensus and view and understanding that Lake Waikato and Whangamarino wetland, and many of the water bodies in that catchment are in a highly degraded state, and many of the values people have for that area are not being met, and that's a cause of great concern for many people in the community. There's also widely held recognition that we have to undertake coordinated action, significant transformational change in some cases to halt the degradation and rehabilitate those water bodies over time. And it could well be a long time, how long it's going to take. So really great that we've got that consensus view about the current degraded state and the need for change. We've formed a Whangamarino working group to come together to essentially identify the pathway forward, the action plan for how we're going to begin to rehabilitate. I shouldn't really say begin to rehabilitate, because as we're all well aware around the table, and we've heard examples today, is there's a mass of information and work that's been done over many, many years. And so this work we're doing now builds on that huge body of work. Key point here is too that we've got, so Waikato Regional Council has got a number of programs of work, including a significant piece of work in the Motukaraka catchment, or Kopuura stream catchment, which is a sub-catchment or a sub-part of the wider Whangamarino catchment. And Jackie and Noel and others are involved in that piece of work. Both the Motukaraka trial work and the Whangamarino project constitute a very significant body of work in my mind, and I think in terms of the council's support for this. Both of these projects potentially establish new approaches to how we manage our catchments, particularly in the lower Waikato. Just to bring us back to the overall vision and the purpose of the Whangamarino project is really to help give effect to Te Ture Whaimana, or Te Awa o Waikato within Whangamarino catchment. So there's no need for us to spend time developing an alternate vision. We've got it right here. And Julian Williams, who many of you will know, is a key member of the project team. One of the things he's identified is the need for everyone around the table of the working group, and more broadly, to get a really good understanding of what Te Ture Whaimana means, where it's come from, in terms of it came out of settlement legislation, and what it means in terms of what we're trying to achieve in Whangamarino. And also, when we come to the point of prioritising actions, identifying what the right things are to do, then we've got some already some clear steers and criteria set out in Te Ture Whaimana to direct us. Just to highlight the catchment, so it's for those who haven't seen it before, and the last committee we were at, it was raised we should include the marae, the 7 marae within the area that have strong links to that whole catchment. And on the right, I just wanted to highlight a couple of things we've been doing around trying to build pictures of our existing body of knowledge, which is very significant. There is enormous amounts of knowledge held both within WRC, within Department of Conservation, within the other project partners, including Waikato-Tainui and Mana Whenua. One of the things we're trying to do is use maps and geographical information systems to try and capture and represent that information. So that will be a key feature of the action plan, is getting a better handle or a better picture that people can see of the importance and the areas, specific areas of high value within the catchment that we need to protect. This is just a reminder of the process that we're working through. So end of January, we delivered a draft of the Whangamarino Action Plan, which was largely based on work that had already been completed, including work done on a catchment management plan in 2018. We appended that to the agenda, so apologies if that padded out the agenda a bit too much, but we thought it would be useful if you were interested in having a look at that. We're now in our first engagement phase, where we're essentially working with a range of groups to test some of the issues and options for rehabilitation. We'll bring all that together, and over sort of August, not October, we'll develop our second draft of the plan. And then recognising that going from that second draft through to a finalised version, there's going to be lots of people who are going to want to have a kōrero about that. And so we're looking to finalise the plan in June 2026, which then leads in really nicely to our next long-term plan in terms of implementation and seeking resources for that. Just quickly, engagement update. So landowners, there's been several meetings with groups of landowners, highly engaged landowners, and they're saying we really want some action, not so much talk, but get down to the actions. And they've already identified some key areas that our options should focus on. In terms of this community and schools, we've got Te Kōwhare College Year 13 science students involved in a whole curriculum of work, understanding issues in the area and doing field work and investigations, and also working on several community events in the Te Kōwhare area. We've got a very strong iwi engagement team. We've got Julian Williams, Nadia Coombe and Kelvin Tapuhi, who are leading the iwi engagement side of things. We've got that plan developed. And as I say, Julian is taking a lead on, I guess, educating us all around the table around the importance of Te Ture Whaimana in this process. And also mention the science, Mātauranga side of things. Our Mātauranga science scientist, Oliver McLeod, is organising this technical workshop in May in Huntly. The working group members will be in attendance. We've brought together a diverse range of technical specialists, and we've got 6 sort of invited speakers who are sort of national, if not internationally recognised in this area.
Mike, just on that, can you share the details of that meeting with members in case people want to attend?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, take that as an action. Finally, I just wanted to highlight the aligned piece of work going on in Motukaraka. So this is an area where there's flood protection, land and drainage infrastructure in place, and has been in place for many decades, nearing the end of its serviceable life. And there's an opportunity there to consider how we manage that catchment for the next 50 to 60 years. And so there's a community panel that's been brought together to consider essentially the options for managing that catchment and how that catchment then sort of fits into the broader Whangamarino plan as well. So I just thought I'd finish with that. This sub-catchment, incredibly complex because you've got a whole raft of issues. It's sort of a microcosm of the whole Whangamarino in many ways. You've got issues with drainage and flood protection, with water quality, with koi carp, with agricultural land use. So yeah, it sort of makes for quite a nice marriage of these two projects. So kia ora, Chairs. Thank you very much.
What kind of marriage? Just kidding. We've got Councillor Mahuta.
Oh, sorry,
Oh.
Noel had his hand up. He
Sorry.
forgot the button.
As part of a member of the both Matakaraka and the Whangamarino, I've become increasingly concerned about the level on which the Whangamarino is operating, and not any criticism of Mike or any start. It's just some of the things, the vested interests and the jumping to conclusions, like one or two landowners wanted to race off and do certain work. And I've pushed back with them and said, look, focus on what we're here for. We are here to determine an action plan to recommend. You are not here to decide what the actions are and go do them now. That's way out of scope. So what I'm concerned about is hearing today about the work that Waikato-Tainui has been doing since 2023. The fact that DOC has responsibility for the Whangamarino, the fact that WRC has responsibility for the water quality and so on. So you've got three key stakeholders who need to have, in my view, need to have a strategic oversight. And we need to, I believe we need to bring the three key stakeholders together. And that this work that's actually been done in the Whangamarino action plan feeds into that strategic group, who ultimately will make the decision collectively, because I don't think this action plan can't be done without the agreement of both our key stakeholders. And at the moment, I feel that DOC and iwi are participating as members of the action group as opposed to partners. And that may be the wrong impression. And I believe that we need to elevate those to an oversight group, and the action group needs to continue with its work. And look, I don't want to be derogatory, but some of those people haven't got the strategic lift yet that they need to for that 50, 80-year vision of what's going on. And, you know, I can see parallels within the Matakaraka. You know, and I know the sensitivity about predetermination and all that Jackie has articulated, and rightly so, because of the documentation that was initially presented. It set everybody off on the wrong stand. But the reality is that's a huge area that needs to be drained, but it's what else that needs to be done to support the catchment. It's not just about a pump, and the landowners have come to understand the bigger picture. And I know Councillor Clarkson and myself are pushing back and saying, you've got to bring to the table, landowners, what is it that we need to contribute to making this catchment go forward? So I'm challenging this committee to think about what may need to be suggested to the council to look at how we're dealing with this going forward, whether we should have strategic oversight by those three key partners, as opposed to just going on and coming up with an action plan. Because whilst the input from iwi and DOC is absolutely important into that group, there's another level above that, because somebody's got to have to find the money and agree with those decisions, because we can come up with agreements. But with them in the room, that's going to be easier. But I just want to raise that and probably had enough. And I'm happy to answer any questions. But I know I've spoken to Mike, haven't had the opportunity to speak to Tracy. I just wanted to raise it. Thank you.
Did you want to make any comment to that?
So the project that we've been doing has utilised Whangamarino as a pilot. So it's just mainly just collecting data. So the struggle that we have in Waikato-Tainui is accessing transparent data. We just, at that time when we did the project, when the proposal was put forward, that was the main direction. It wasn't necessarily the Whangamarino itself. It was just how do we create a system or a GIS system where we can get transparent data from all partners. So just because Whangamarino was seen as a pilot, it wasn't. It was actually in parallel with what was happening with the working committee group, with the work group that was happening at the time, but it necessarily wasn't part of the Whangamarino catchment itself. It was just an opportunity that was taken that we could start to build a system that gives us as Waikato-Tainui and our marae members an opportunity to view data the way we like to see it. It wasn't necessarily for anyone else. It was just purely for us as tribal members, as marae, because the data that we have access to is already publicly available, but it's not available in the way we like to see things. And so that's what I say. It wasn't us working with Doc and everyone else. It was collecting the data that's already publicly available, like I said, net surface and all that, where it's filtered through a system that we can see. When it goes live, that's available for everyone, but there's going to be things that only available for us and our marae and our manuhiri, or in our haukainga and things like that. So that's why I'm really excited, but we've been holding it close to our heart because there are things like data sovereignty that we need to make sure that when it does go live, that not everyone has access to it. Like our mātauranga, there are things that we need to make sure that the IP is correct, and then the data we are sharing isn't putting regional council in an unsafe position or Department of Conservation in an unsafe position. So it's a long, because working with technology, we know technology is really complex. We all know there's a lot of hackers out there. And so just making it a safe system so it has access for everyone, but does the purpose it has. But it's built for Waikato-Tainui and our marae members only, and it was built from the ground up. So yeah, there's sort of a reason why we haven't shared it as much, because once interest starts getting in, people start influencing their own sort of whakaaro on it. But when we're ready, but yeah, it was no need to disrespect regional council or anything like that. That what's in the system already is things that are already publicly available to everyone, and it wasn't working with anyone else. Doc haven't seen anything, regional council haven't seen anything. We've done that on purpose. Yeah.
So, no, look, I appreciate that, but my concern is that should there be a strategic oversight group, and that's probably where I wanted to focus my comments is, and like, I may not have any support, but I'd like people to think about it, please. Thank you.
Mike.
Thank you. I'll just mention that I think the meeting we had on Monday, we were just starting to get to a point where some of the different stakeholder groups, different interests start to collide. And I think as we go further through the action plan development, the different interests are going to get pretty crunchy. And knowing from a WRC perspective, I know that the support we've had right through this process from you, Chair Pamela, and from Noel and Robbie and others has been really valuable. But I think it would be valuable to have, I guess, a strong team backing the delivery of the action plan when some interests start to get a wee bit nervous, and doing the right thing for Whangamarino wetland needs to be at the forefront, while recognising that we have to have everybody around the table and keep them around the table. So having a bit of a strong team in the governance behind us would be really valuable. Got it.
So we'll put some thinking around how we might best give effect to what you're asking for. All right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Mahuta.
It kind of goes down your pathway a little bit, Noel, and that we've had plans around the lake. We've had different groups constituted around the lake. We've had different section 33s and that around the lake since I've been a councillor here. We used to have the Catchment committee that considered the lake. But whatever we all did, it was some setting around the dock, things outside of us that couldn't change. So we can look at little problems, not the whole solution. I'm wondering, have we read our minister, and given that he's a local resident of the Waikato, our Minister of Dock, he wants a doable, he wants a winnable. Why don't we start with a small winnable dock thing, if not in Whangamarino, somewhere? It's tamaputaka. I told him he can take my carbo plant in Huntly. I've been arguing for that for 12 years too, but but something's got to change in that bigger setting there, or in NZTA. It's all things that are outside of our mandate. So I'm just wondering if that was the purpose of the group, is just to go and poke the other agencies, kei te pai, because I don't think all the stakeholders need to be oversighted. They've all been in this talk for ages Hey, the landowners, the iwi, the aharane, but no one is actually poking the bear. Yeah, and I'm wondering whose job is it to poke the bear, because we can sort out lake issue, but we can't sort out the whole situation that causes the lake issue. So again, I'll put that onto your committee, Noel. If they're there to poke the bear, I'm in. Kia ora.
Councillor Nicol.
Yeah, yeah, really interesting, Noel, that you've raised that, and Mike for saying it would be useful, because when we had that paper come to strategy and policy a couple of months ago, I wasn't able to attend, but I sent through a long email with a few other options we could consider, and it was along the same lines of this governance above. And my main reason for it was, I think relationships, to get a large amount of funding, we know will be required, take a long time. And so if we could use this triennium to design what we're talking about, so that when the new elected members come in and after October, they hit the ground running, because I don't want them to have to be inducted, figure it out for themselves. By then, it's all just too late. So I think we can pre-design for them with the bit of energy we have left in this triennium. And I'm mindful that, you know, the project currently doesn't have funding for that. And so if it comes from, say, this committee or the councillors involved, that we would like to see something come through the CE submission to boost that project somewhat, to allow that to happen, that'd be the way to get it done, is what but yeah, like the secondary or perhaps primary objective for that relationship between the key people who will be putting in the money to start early, to either poke bears or at least get to know each other well enough so they're able to convince all of their peers on all of their things. Thank you. I have one other comment on this paper, and it was just, I'll touch base with you after, Mike, and it was just around this project gets mentioned a lot in the Climate Action Roadmap update. And so all of the commitments we have in that roadmap, I've just not quite seen come through fully in this so far, but it's so draft that it might just be my misunderstanding so far. So I might just touch base with you outside of this. Thank you.
All right. Yes. Go ahead.
Where my mind goes in terms of a strategic oversight committee is the period of time that it's going to take to complete the action plan. So I would hope that the action plan is, you know, it's a short, sharp thing, deliver the action plan and then start on implementing the action plan. I asked Noel the frequency of the working group meetings, you know, which are maybe once every 6 to 8 weeks, so every couple of months. So I'm just wondering if establishing another committee is the most efficient way of achieving the outcome that I think Noel is wanting to achieve, which is to lift the conversation, involve all partners in the final decision making or recommendation that needs to go forward, as opposed to what's currently happening, which is a lot of people working on a thing and then that gets handed to one partner to then decide. So I guess open to some sort of construct to really facilitate maybe a more strategic conversation with the right groups. Don't know if that's a committee, but leave that with the team to think about. Given that, you know, I'm hoping the action plan will be delivered soon so we can actually start focusing on what we need to give effect to the action plan.
Three key partners need to be in total alignment, and whilst they're around the table, is that the view of the tribe, is it the view of the department, or is it just, you know, and is it the council signing off on it, or just a couple of councils and councils in attendance? I'll leave it to the rest.
But I like to emphasize that point, that it can support our staff also to get through the hard parts of these conversations, because we could get stuck there for a while. So it's got lots of benefit.
Great. All right. We need to receive this report. So Councillor Mahuta and Trustee Green, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Mike.
And
Much
just before
appreciated.
Mike leaves, you know, it's incredibly important work. And it's great to have the focus and the resources working on it. If you need support from, Waikato-Tainui, just let us know at a governance level as well.
All right, committee members, we're now on to item, yeah,
Just going to
Go ahead.
reaffirm that the kotahitanga whakaaro.
Yep, yep.
And it's actually coming through quite clear.
Yeah.
So just reiterating that.
Thank you. All right, this is item 7.8. It's page 139 on your agendas. We also do have a public excluded item that we need to get through. And both of us co-chairs are hard up against a deadline to be away. So if we can move swiftly, that would be fantastic. All right, I've got Vicky. Welcome, Vicky.
Thank you. Okay, kia ora koutou. So I really need to start off with apologies that Mark Bann could not be here to present his report. And number two, I've actually become aware that the actual consultation document, the strategic plan, was received too late to make your agenda, so it's not actually attached. So I've done my notes assuming that you had all read it, so this should speed my notes up. And I will arrange for that to get sent out immediately after this.
Great.
Thank you. Firstly, I'd like to thank you for the feedback that we received last year. We really did hear you and hope that feedback has strongly informed, you can see the feedback strongly informed the plan that's been presented for consultation. Over the 5 years of the plan, the strategic focus is working towards the vision of a disaster resilient Waikato. And that's been quite interesting sitting here in the meeting, hearing all those different linking topics. And as I was glancing through these lovely brochures and seeing it reiterated there, so we're all on the same song page. What was clear that it was crucial that we improve in strengthening our partnership with iwi and mana whenua and Māori representation. So guidance was sought from the Tauranga Whenua team, and from that 5 po were revised to provide focus to the group. Okay, we'll skip that part. Okay, and we had a review team, and the governance advice provided there from a Māori perspective emphasised that Māori were not to be siloed in the plan as an integral part of the whole community. So in the plan, where you see the term community, this encompasses all. That is marae, hapu, iwi, it is everything. There are, I think, 6 objectives that specifically reference either Māori, mana whenua or marae. So otherwise it's all encompassing. And the big flip in the plan is readiness being at the forefront. So readiness is enabling community-led responses. And that's been the very big elevated thing in the plan. And enablement includes resourcing, and we all know what resourcing entails. And where needed, providing extra support and resources to ensure equitable outcomes. So that's a very strong theme in there. And that resourcing word will obviously link into long-term plan discussions and budget setting. So in the first instance, it will be knowing what's needed, which is part of the action plan that will fall out the bottom of this. And just my other comment, hearing the discussions this morning about linking and who's doing what at what level, just with regard to where the group plan sits legislatively is, it's like regulations, it's on the same level as regional policy statements. So it actually feeds into long-term plans, district plans, future-proof plans, all those sorts of things. So we're going to work hard on our relationships and understanding that. And thank you. I think
Great.
That's me.
Thank you. Any questions for Vicky?
Not
Yes?
a question, just appreciate where CDEM's come in this term, in terms of working with mana whenua and iwi. I really appreciate it. Been waiting for it for 12 years, so awesome, Amini. My question is, and I raised it earlier this morning, Waikato gets stuck with Auckland as well, and its north, and how can they smooth out those? It only matters when it really matters, but when it really matters, bridges are closed, access is reverted back to Auckland, not Tuakau. That's how it practically worked out, or Mangatangi there that time. So just wondering if the CDEMs are talking to each other, how can iwi gain from that? So kia ora.
Okay, probably on my brevity. The part that I didn't cover was one of the key areas of the plans is the hazards and the risk assessments and the findings, which is important for the community to understand. But that also covers off the shared risks across boundaries and working with groups. And we have coordination groups. There's some in place already, like the Caldera Advisory Group. So the volcano might be there, but the ash is coming here. Something happens in Auckland, everyone's coming this way. So there is greater meetings and collaboration with our surrounding groups because we actually have 5 that we boundary on. So it's quite a tasking.
Thank you.
I just had a question, and given that the draft plan wasn't included in our pack, how do we receive it and how do you receive our feedback?
The plan is actually open for consultation, so I will send an email to Brooke and wrap up a package. So I'll do a summary of each section of the plan, which time-wise not going through today, and that'll have the link to the consultation document. Otherwise, I'll provide an email if there's any queries that you'd like to direct, outside of the submission process. Happy to do that, and as an avenue for discussions. I know Mark Bang is meeting with staff from Waikato-Tainui on work programs and things like that that feed into this also.
So just a supplementary question, what level of involvement have our team had in the development of the draft?
So the tasking was when we came to here and with other JMAs and other engagement, sorry, I need a drink of water, was to go away and look at your strategic documents, which Tauranga Whenua provided a beautiful analysis, and those, along with the findings from national reviews, which include impacts on Māori communities and all that, is what set the structure. There's 9 objectives. There's outcomes that are specific. So you informed us from what you had existing, what you'd already directed, and it's the analysis that we used, along with coming to meetings.
I did talk to Debbie Price, who's leading this for us, and she said that members of our team met last week with you guys. They want someone from our senior management to join the strategic group, so we've organised that. Our members of our team are also participating in the welfare coordination group, so that's Johnine and her team. So we feel, our team feels like there's been the right level of engagement to get to this place. Yeah.
All right. Can we get a motion? Yes?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Is it going to, I'm just wondering though, if your consultation is going to close before this committee reconvenes, or meets again?
9th of May, it's
Yeah.
open till.
Yeah, so I think we just note the report, and we look forward to the email that Brooke will distribute to members. All right. Right. Yep. The feedback, though, will have to come from the individual organizations. It won't be able to come from this committee itself as a collective. So just so we're all. All right. Do I have a mover and a seconder for this? Do I have a mover? Councilor? Noted. Noted. All right. Do I have a mover? Councillor Clarkson, a second, Councillor Nickel. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, thank you very much, Nikki, or Vicky. All right. Okay, we need to have a motion to move into public excluded. Trustee Green and Counselor Nichol, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right.